suppose we were known as that kind of people right this minute. Boy, you talking about wonderful. Oh, is that a black person coming down the hall? Oh, you know, y'all were talking about all these problems and whatnot. Well, the problem's going to be solved when they get here. They don't fool around. They used to be the worst people in the world. Well, solving problems. They used to make problems. Everybody would see a black person, they say, here comes trouble. Here comes somebody who's going to make a problem because they don't know nothing about solving one. And now it's been flipped. They have become tenacious about solving problems. They wake up in the morning and go to bed at night thinking about problems to be solved. And they don't run from them, they embrace them. What's the problem here? That's what they ask all the time. And somebody describes the problem, they say, give me 15 minutes, I'll be back. Problem solved. Magic people. That's what black people are known for. I mean, they can't get enough of it. They love it. Problem solved. We got some dark-skinned people. It used to be just the opposite. We have to go and clean up their mess. Because that's all they know how to do is make one. A mess of some type. Now suppose, in answer to the question, yes, these are the type of people we want us to be. And none other than that. And have that type of mindset. Because everything starts with the mind. Just say, I ain't doing nothing that's non-constructive. Starting with this very minute. I talked about that last week. Each day, this day, constructive results. That's just 4 words. When you start talking about people of color, particularly people who have the label of slaves, black people, troublemakers. No. It made a huge change. Not just little driblets here and little driblets of that. No. Hey, when you start talking about black people, you're talking about problem solvers. Boy, they are out of sight, notorious for that. They can't get enough of it. Suppose we had that rep now. That's the rep we should be trying to get from now on, starting with this minute.
Okay. From the Gmails, this is from April, one of 3 questions, but we'll just do this one. Number 2, it says the transgender LGBTQ and pedophilia agenda. She says, a black basketball player, Dwayne Wade, and his wife recently received the NAACP Image Award for promoting their son's desire to become a woman at only 15 years old. Mr. Fuller, how does this fit into the racism, white supremacy dynamic?
To the extent that a racist has anything to do with it, and the assumption according to the code is that the racists, white supremacists, have the final say in anything connected with non-white people of the planet Earth here in the year 2023. So anything that the racists have anything to do with and that they're promoting it or allowing to happen on a significant scale is to make the system of white supremacy stronger. That's the logic. So that's exactly what they're doing with this. That's the logic. And the textbook talks about that at great length. This balkanization of sex, the scatter-sexualization, all kinds of terms you can have for it. And the code takes the position that all of this, every bit of it, I've come up with all kind of names for them. Many of them and the code book itself. You can call it fake sex. You can call it infinitive sex. You can call it omnisexual. You can call it oblivion sex, anti-black sex. All of these alternatives, so-called, are highly suspicious of crippling, and I even call it what it is, cripple sex. All of this is to cripple black people. Sex is very important. The white supremacists understand that if you can control people's minds, because that's where it all starts, when it comes to sex, and steer it in the direction, that mind, that you want it to go, you got that person in all the areas of activity. Locked up. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, and war. It's easier to control a person in all areas of activity if you just control them in just that one. Sex. Sex is very powerful. So you steer it in the direction that you want it to go. And you can steer that person in everything else with great ease. You don't have to go through a whole lot of changes. In economics, in education, how that person will want to be educated, because they've already been led into a type of education where there's going to be a lot of confusion when it comes to sex. And the white supremacists thrive on confusion in any area of activity. But if they learned a long time ago, if you can confuse people when it comes to sex, you got them. You got all of them. You don't have to confuse them in nothing else, because they'll be confused in everything else. They won't know what they're doing about anything or why they're doing it. And so you grab them early if you can, but if you can't, you go for the intellectuals. And they have done that just about worldwide. That's almost a done deal. And the white supremacists now, they have decided that they can just sit back and relax. Because they say, we got these black people so confused when it comes to sex. They got no idea what hit them. They got no idea of what we're doing. They think this is something that they invented. And that goes to show you how stupid they are. And they're just grabbing it. As we dumping all this garbage out here, they're just grabbing it. Like it's a new type of drug, which it is. And so, yes, this is all in support of the system of white supremacy. Every bit of it. Every bit of all this cripple sex, insult sex, masquerade sex, abysmal sex. Every type of sex you can name that ain't sex. Sex is male and female. But you can twist the mind and say, oh, that tree is sexy. Go over there and get something going with that tree. And they wink at each other and say, you think that black guy is that stupid? You say, no, you tell him that 2 or 3 times, he'll believe it. You got to look sincere. They go over there and do something with that tree. Amos. Do something like what? Cut it down with a no. Have sex with it. Amos, don't you know that's the latest thing? No, I ain't heard that. I want to be up with the latest thing. So I'm going to take out my phallus and go over there and see what I can do with that tree. And the white supremacist says, boy, I didn't have any idea that these people that we have trained are that stupid.
Okay, wow. Ready? Let me see here. Okay, and then this question here was asked, Mr. Fuller, the white people are now calling each other racist and white supremacists. After January the 6th, many white, quote, nationalists, end of quote, were jailed and are being treated like second-class citizens. Kanye West said that the Jews are the most powerful people on the planet and are behind everything. Under a system of racism, white supremacy, should we distinguish the Jew from the white man? And are white people becoming a victim of their own racism, white supremacy? If so, please elaborate.
The system of white supremacy, in capital letters, is the dominant religious, and political system on the face of planet Earth in the year 2023. The system of white supremacy, which is racism. Racism and white supremacy are one and the same. There's no other form of racism, period. None. Can't have two supremes unless you're talking about a singing group or something like that. The system of white supremacy is the most powerful system of government on planet Earth, period. Of all the different types of so-called government, these are just words kicked around. There's only one government on planet Earth in 2023, and that name of that government is the system of white supremacy, which is racism. Just one. And if you mention something like socialism, or Judaism, or capitalism, or liberalism, or colonialism, you're talking about white supremacy. That's all you're talking about. Just different words to mean the same thing. And keep that in mind, because that's the codified position. If a person hasn't taken that codified position, then my book is of no value to that person, most likely. Because the premise is one system of government, just one, just one, just one. And the name of that government is the system of white supremacy, not Americans, not Africans, not Asians, at all, period. Not Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists. The name of the world government, talking about the world now, that motivates everybody to do whatever they do. It's a system of white supremacy. According to whom? Neely Fuller? No. According to evidence and logic. End of story.
Okay. End of story. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. You have spoken about your books many times, and we need to talk about that right now in the remaining 3 minutes that we have in this section before we have to go to hour number 2. So, Mr. Fuller, speak to your book.
Okay, the premise is that there are many problems on the planet. The biggest problem, if you're going to look for the biggest problem, and that is be the problem that causes all the other problems or prevents all other problems from being solved, is the system of white supremacy, a system of government that means what? You mistreat people and dominate people based on the color of the skin of the people. And that is the dominant government on planet Earth in 2023. So the textbook for victims of white supremacy is to get rid of that government and come up with a better government, because there's no point in getting rid of one type of government and the next government that you replace it with is not going to be something better. So you replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, which no one has ever done, by the way, in recorded history. All of recorded history. There's never been a time when there was a system of justice in place among the people of planet Earth in recorded history. Why? Because there's never been a time when justice dominated exterminated the people of planet Earth. Justice meaning what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. So there's never been, in recorded history, a time when somebody wasn't being mistreated. Because that's what you have to have in order to have justice. You have to have two factors. Nobody being mistreated, that's nobody, at any time for any reason. You never had that situation. And the second thing is everybody getting the help that they needed when it was needed. It's never happened. But the theory, the logic is, because it can be conceived, and everything starts with the conception, it can be done. People couldn't even think of it if people couldn't do it. That's the way the assumption is that the Creator made people like that. All people. Gave them the potential to think about doing things, and then the people, when they think about it and dedicate themselves to doing it, they do it. Otherwise, they couldn't even think about it. Their minds wouldn't stretch that far. The Creator of the universe, apparently, based on logic, made it that way. So anytime a person says, an idea just came to me, an idea for a computer, like Steve Jobs and whatnot, came up with ideas about computers. So, where do these ideas come from? From Steve Jobs' creator. Where do ideas come from? You can't get them unless they come from somewhere. So people say all the time, all people, I just thought of something. And there's a logical question. Where was that thought before you got it? So it was sent to you at a time when you were supposed to put it to use. That's why it was sent. That's a theory, but it's a logical theory. I hope I answered the question.
No, we were talking about your book.
Oh, yes. The book, you can go, yes, you can go to producejustice.com. And a lot of the things that I'm saying are in the book. And they help you. They're supposed to help you as a non-white person to solve the problem of racism and replace it with a better system called justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most always gets that help.
The most
Otherwise, you don't have justice. Go to producejustice.com.
Okay. And with that, that concludes the first hour of the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller. But we do have a second hour. So if you have to go, thank you for listening. But stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., which will commence in 6 seconds. All righty. Thank you. And welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Contact number to get in with this show is 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button. As Tess has done in New York, so he will be coming up next year. Make sure you press that button so that you can be heard. Make sure that if you give a VGQ or a comment, make it short. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And we'll see about getting that read at some point in time. You can also join the chat room. There's many things going on in that chat room. Go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on programs, and then when you get the programs, you want the Produce Justice show. You click on that in the chat room. If you find it, it is available for you to get in there. And occasionally I will read some of the things that are said in the chat room. So make sure that you do that, ma'am. Make sure you do that, sir. All the books and materials can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. All Okay, let's see here. Technology, woo, mercy. Something else. Tess, get ready. And you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Over the past few weeks, there has been a dividing situation playing out over the internet. The problem, as I understand it, is why is a racist suspect female denying this title? I will use page 18 of the compensatory code book as reference. I have also removed the facts of the situation in the essence of time. My questions are, when does a white lady become a racist suspect female? As well, Mr. Fuller, can you explain why a white person who speaks and or acts effectively against racism is not a racist, or only during the periods when doing so? Thank you.
All righty. Mr. Fuller?
According to the code, any white person who is able to be a racist probably is one and should be suspected of being one. Why? Because there's no way that I know of to prove whether a white person is or is not a racist. There's no standard, as far as I know. As soon as somebody finds out what the standard is, or how do you actually tell the difference between a white person who is a racist and a white person who isn't, I don't know what the procedure is for doing that. I have never heard anyone point it out. And I've never read a book on it or saw a program or whatnot. After all these years, it would seem like there would be some standards. They have standards for everything else, but it appears that way. A code for most things that work, but nobody points out which white person is a racist and which white person is not. So many white people say that they are not racist. And what are you supposed to do when the white person says, I'm not a racist? What's supposed to be your reaction? Well, according to the code, if you're able to be one, and victims of racism, which is what my code book is about, the one that I've written, you're supposed to be suspicious of every white person who is able to be a racist. You're supposed to suspect. You have a duty to suspect that white person probably is one. Why? Based on logic. Because somebody's got to be a racist. If the dominant government on the planet is a racist government, the system of white supremacy, that's the dominant government on the planet. So that's got to include a whole bunch of people to be the dominant government, and very smart and powerful people to be the dominant government. So you have the system of white supremacy, that's evidence for those who agree that that's evidence. So somebody's got to be a white supremacist. But I've never seen a list of who is and who isn't. That would be very convenient for everybody to solve the problem, really, of racism. If you had the name and address, a master, you can punch it up on the computer, name and address. Anybody that you meet will say that you're Mr. Henry Phillips. And say, yes, I'm Henry Phillips of such an address and whatnot, and this is my picture and whatnot. And suppose everybody could just take out your cell phone and hit a couple of buttons, and his name would come up. Well, Mr. Phillips is not a racist, according to this description. We've run a check on him. He's not a racist. He's okay. Then it comes down to a question, well, who put that in the computer? Is that person a racist?
Mm-hmm.
See, so, like I said,